All right, let's head out to that studio in the sky. Wade Bray is joining us. He's with the AAA Route 66 Road Fest. Did I get that name correct, sir?
Perfect. You got it just right.
And the sponsor and everything. I always tell people if there's a sponsor and they paid for it, dang it, we better make sure we get it in there.
Well, AAA is the presenting sponsor.
Okay.
They're the ones who initiated this project back in the fall of 2019, and we have been cranking on this ever since.
Now, AAA, that's insurance, correct?
Well, they do insurance, but they're most widely known for the roadside service and that sort of thing that they provide. So they've actually been around for over 100 years. So they're even slightly older than the route itself. So
Oh, they were big back in my childhood, of course. And
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
anytime we ever went on a road trip anywhere, the first thing you would do is go to the AAA office and they get out the highlighter and like highlight the highways on the big foldy map, and it was like, all right, this is where we're going. So
I used to travel back in the early 2000s and we would a lot of traveling, 2 weeks on, a week off type of a thing. I used to travel 42 weeks a year, 36 weeks a year. So you can do the math and see that, boy, these guys on the road a lot. And even if you're driving or flying, you still got to drive around the cities and this and that. But my Sunday nights would consist of these giant AAA road maps. They were very large, and we needed them because we didn't have apps and everything back then. So the world has changed quite
absolutely.
a bit. But so AAA, they're still around, and Road Fest, Route 66 Road Fest. Now, how many years have you done this?
Our first event was actually in 2022. The original plan was to start them in 21, but there was this COVID thing that decided that that was not going to be the case. So we were delayed by a year in starting. But this will be our fifth year. So we made it to the centennial, which was the original plan was to start an event and get it going, and then to celebrate the history of the route leading up to the centennial. So here we are.
I have another brand called the Crude Life, and it's a oil and gas lifestyle.
Oh yeah.
And I'm up in the Midwest where it was the Bakken oil field, and so I was an entrepreneur, and my background is magazine and talk shows on that sort of thing, and so but I was a publisher at the same time, and an editor and a writer and a producer, and so I did know the different multi-mediums, if you will, but first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur, and so the area that was not necessarily being covered was kind of the lifestyle. So we
Right.
were we were actually using the word energy before the oil and gas industry was. We were doing the every March we would promote a different woman in energy and oil and gas every
That's
day.
great.
Yeah, and long before anybody else was getting published in magazines and stuff. And then as the rise of social media happened, we kind of saw I survived. I lived through went bankrupt with one of my companies during the 2008 to 2012. Let's take out all the publishing companies and
Uh-huh.
newspapers.
I'm
Yeah,
familiar with that.
I
Yes.
didn't feel so bad when 95% of the newspapers went bankrupt over the next 3 years. I went, oh, my little small publishing company that I survived 8 recessions, but one got me, dang it. And so I look at it that way. But anyway, it was the lifestyle part. And so we would interview the cafe owners and basically the supply chain that supported the operators. And I
Sure.
got such an appreciation for the industry that, you wouldn't find. Well, like I said, when the media changed and the oil and gas industry became politicized in normal conversation, I had to really on think about how I had to reinvent the brand. So we were going to go the route of classic cars because I thought to myself, the last people that are going to actually protest against oil and gas companies are classic car owners. Are you kidding
Sure.
me? They want that. They don't care about all that. See, when I grew up, the oil and gas industry wasn't political. Gas prices maybe were, but it wasn't like it is today. And so the Crude Life, we thought, boy, what a great classic car name. So we were gonna go, and we got accepted to the Barrett Jackson auction down in
Okay.
Phoenix. I thought it's a great way. Okay, we have this established, very affluent mineral rights holder audience.
Right.
Let's bring them these nice auction classic cars. Well, then COVID happened. So we had to
Yep.
completely change our whole thing too. But this summer, one of the things that we are doing is going back to the classic cars as part of a main stable on the crude life. So part of
Sure.
what we're doing with Route 66 Americana Archive is capturing as many classic cars and that sort of thing as possible. Now, the Road Fest, there's a classic car component, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have so basically the event takes place in the what's called the SageNet Center at Expo Square here in Tulsa. And it's about 400,000 square feet building. So you've got about 100,000 square feet downstairs and then the rest upstairs. So that entire downstairs is a classic car show, which in Oklahoma in late June, the idea of an indoor classic car show is very popular because it tends to be pretty warm in late June in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we've got about 250 cars in that part of our show. And then even upstairs in the show, we have classic cars throughout our what we call the journey, which is our 20,000 square foot historical exhibit about the history of Route 66. And then even just scattered out and around as well. So just particular cars of interest within the exhibits. There's two cars that fit each decade that are being done within the particular exhibit. So if you're a classic car fan, Roadfest is definitely a good time.
Not only do I love the soundboard just placed right behind you, but I'm extremely jealous of the Montego Bay uh, poster or whatever, right behind the album poster or
Right.
movie or
Yes.
so anyway, the sidebar there. 2021 is when you said it was
That
the
the
first year.
22 was our
22.
first production year, but 21 was canceled because of the remnants of COVID. So
And are you the founder of this?
well, so I work with a company called SRO Productions, and AAA approached us. We do all kinds of events, concerts and benefits and corporate events and festivals, and you name it, we've pretty much done it. So AAA approached us back in the fall of 2019 and said, we want to create an event that celebrates the history of Route 66. And so we started brainstorming from that point. And so, yes, we created the event and have produced it, since the very beginning.
And they approached you. That's fantastic. For them to have the foresight and just the well, there's so many different angles of Route 66, and there's so many different. And what I tell people all the time is that when I went in and did my deep dive researching it, it was very easy to find out that there are more stories than Mother Goose with Route 66, and that's fantastic. That means that it inspires people in a lot of different ways. It connects people in ways that interstates don't. It connects people in a way spiritually, emotionally, intangibly, in a way that a tangible object shouldn't. And so
Right.
that's some extremely progressive, and I mean that in a non-political way
Sure.
for AAA to do that. Um, yeah, so that's pretty bizarre. That's pretty wild. Did they give you any parameters? Like, did they give you a mission statement, or just kind of trust that okay, you guys are the heart of Route 66 is Tulsa or the capital or what I've so many people brag with so many different reasons. By the end of the trip, I'm going to write a book just on I'm from this area and I brag about this. It's
Tulsa is officially the capital of Route
capital.
66. Yes.
Okay. Now what? No, but aren't you the energy capital of the world or energy capital of the U.S.?
There was a time back in the 80s where a lot of the oil companies were based here, and we were very much that at that time. Unfortunately, there was a point where that started headed to Houston, and so we
Yeah,
don't really have that same place in that marketplace like we once did. But
I wasn't sure because I know Houston is the current self-proclaimed, and many
right,
agree, but many agree,
sure.
that they're the center of energy, on the planet. But I thought for some reason Tulsa or Oklahoma City was trying to get of the United States. It's a lot like up in my neck of the woods, up in the Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota area.
Uh-huh.
So North Dakota has the geographical center of North America. No, yeah, North America, and South Dakota has the United States, and so they bicker back and forth about that too. Not much to bicker about in the Dakotas. So we got to take what we can, and we invent things like jackalopes.
That's
That's
beautiful.
yeah.
When I was a child, I actually had a jackalope on my wall, so I know them well.
I still think they have to be real. It's at some point they got to be with the chupacabras and the Bigfoots or something.
Exactly.
I don't know,
I
but
think as long as Bigfoot's big in Oklahoma, so as long as we believe in them, they're real. So,
so is Bigfoot is pretty big there, huh?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot. The northeastern Oklahoma, where Tulsa is called green country, and that is because we have a lot of plant life and forest and
Yeah.
trees and not a lot of contour. We've got some hills when you get over towards Arkansas, pretty flat, not as flat as Kansas, but pretty flat, but a lot of green over here. And so yeah, the Bigfoot people spend a lot of time here.
Like sightings? There's sightings and things?
Yeah, there's sightings, and then the
Okay.
researchers and all of that stuff. Oklahoma is pretty
See,
big on
we
that.
we don't have them up here in the Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, which is
Interesting,
surprising because the Black Hills you'd think there would be,
right?
but there's not.
Huh.
The in North Dakota, there's really not. In Minnesota, there's a place called Vergus, Minnesota, which is about an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on which road you take, to Duluth, and it's kind of between Duluth and Minneapolis, but a little bit west. There's been a couple sightings of a hairy man there for years and
Right.
years and years. I guess there's been a like Loch Ness monster and a couple of the different things, but mostly it's the aliens up here, like
Right.
the UFO aliens and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I didn't want to turn this into a paranormal Joe Rogan interview here. I used to do the night show in Fargo, North Dakota, and we were the lead in to Coast AM, which is the
Oh
original.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the last hour, I would, it's 9 o'clock on a school night. Yeah, we'll bring on the crazy people. Absolutely, man. It keeps me awake during that
Why
last
not?
hour.
It's a good conversation.
Well, it's called knowing your audience. I mean,
Right. Exactly.
interviews like this, we actually, if we did an interview like this during the 9 o'clock hour, we would bring in a music guest, and I would assume you have music at your event. So this is my transition back to the event.
Sure.
What kind of music are you offering? Are you at
Well,
the meeting?
we have in the past. I don't. This year, we're probably not. Originally, the original concept for the event was we had a huge outdoor festival-sized stage, and we brought in national touring acts. The downside of that was that again, in late June in Oklahoma, it is very, very hot, and so we literally had people's shoes melting onto asphalt. So the crowds for the outdoor just cannot hold up in this kind of heat. So last year we brought some music inside, but it just really didn't work as well as we would have liked. So we have a presentation stage where we do one-on-one conversations and interviews or panel conversations, and we talk to people like Michael Wallace and Jim Hinckley and Joe Sonderman, and so that's really going to be more of our focus. So rather than blending in music this year, we've just enhanced the guests on the presentation stage. And with it being the centennial, we're just really going to focus on the route and people that know different aspects of the route. We do everything from, like we were just talking about, we do everything from paranormal and crime on the route to weather, and everything in between. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
There is a paranormal guy I'm going to be interviewing too, for the Route 66 and everything. The one of the more bizarre ones, of course, is in Kansas, which represents 13.3 miles of Route 66 total, and
Yes.
they've got a Kansas Route 66 Parrot Head Club, and
Okay.
I'm going, that that's niche. That is some
That
niche
is
there.
that is very, very specific. Yes.
Like, I'm not even sure what Kansas has to do with parrot heads, but it just shows you that, man, that parrot heads go all over the place,
They're
and
everywhere.
when they nexus and cross with Route 66, I guess, do they get together in Galena every? I don't know. It's just kind of, it's
That
interesting, but
that makes sense.
I've seen some other ones too, and just this weekend we got in touch with we back and forth with a pastor who's going to do a devotional for every mile.
Huh.
So he's traveling it right now with his church group, and he's doing it for every mile. He's on day one, so I'm kind of waiting to see if he can make it to day three.
That's a
Sometime
lot. Yeah,
it
that
is.
is a
It's a
lot.
lot. Yeah, yeah, and
Interesting.
yeah, and it just kind of shows you all the different things. In fact, I was kind of even looking with my trip. Part of my morning routine is going to be, kind of writing the day out and getting things together. And we're folding in the mental health aspect of it, where part of my trip is going to be focused on mental health, and folding that into even some of the conversations, and having that morning alone time and just processing, and having the cup of coffee and everything. I got to the point now where I listen to the birds, and
Yeah,
I got to identify a lot of the different birds through the help of some apps and that sort of thing. So I'm
sure.
just going to even fold that in to get the different, because I enjoy that when I sit with my morning coffee when I travel and that sort of thing. And I haven't seen too much on that, so I'm glad that even that's going to be making into it. How often do you take? Have you taken the Route 66 personally at all?
I have done everything from Chicago to Needles, California. So all I have left is Needles to Santa Monica, and I will have done the whole thing.
My goodness,
So
sir, you made it to the 10-yard line and you didn't punch it in.
I
Holy
know I
smokes.
had I went to Needles to do an information fair kind of thing, and I had to get back, and I designed an exhibit in Kingman, Arizona, so I was out there several times, and each time I thought, I should just go ahead and finish it, but of course I always had to get back for one reason or another. So that's what I've got left hanging over me, is all in the state of California. So I'm before this year is finished, I will complete it, and then I'll be able to say. Now, mind you, I didn't do it in one shot. I've done it in several segments, but yes, I'm very close to have accomplishing the whole thing.
I've been planning this for over a year without planning it for over a year, if that makes sense.
Right.
The first thing I did was I had to carve out the time. And
Mhm.
for me, this kind of stemmed with, uh, have you ever, speaking of conspiracies and all that other stuff, uh, I was raised Catholic, and I was a Sunday school teacher, and left the Catholic Church when I hit the age of reason, and then I get pulled back and all that. You know what I mean? It's just kind of,
Sure.
and I'm actually ordained and I can do weddings and do, but
Oh wow.
it's the same church that Conan O'Brien and Will Ferrell are a part of. So,
Okay.
but we can do weddings and everything. But so I've whether it be the the puzzles or the stories or whatever, I've always had an attraction to different forms, and I was raised that way. I always joke that I was Catholic, so I was spoon fed fear and guilt my whole life, and um, and so the band books always kind of intrigued me, and so I kind of got into those a little bit. And there's a book called the Book of Jubilee, and I thought, okay, and it's about timing and timelines and things, and it starts with every 7 days you're supposed to have a day of rest. Okay, well I remember that. That's what
Right.
Sunday is for. Okay, and then every 7 years you're supposed to rest the land for a year. Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense with some of our sustainable practices that we're at least
Sure.
trying to go to. And I remember the Dust Bowl was a real thing. So okay,
Absolutely.
so on the other side of that, okay, well, the score two for the Bible on that. Okay, the banned book by the Bible, by the way, the banned book.
Right.
Um, but there was one for humans, and it was on your 50th year, your 49th, after 49 years, you're supposed to take a year off and
Huh.
go travel and go find who you are and do this and in the same way you rejuvenate the land and you rejuvenate yourself, you're supposed to do that. So that's kind of how that all started, to be honest. And then when I was trying to do basically a Christmas gift for the crude life, I saw that Route 66 was turning 100 years old, and with the classic cars and
Right.
my background, it just all worked together. And then I was like, you know what, this would be a blast to actually do as a bucket list item, but then also do it in a way that's meaningful. And so I spent a good month really deep diving the different angles. And that's when I discovered that this route has inspired people in ways that you can never comprehend. Because, like I said, when you think that you've thought of everything, oh, there's a parrot head group in Kansas.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Did you forget to invite them to the party, guys? Okay, well, there you
Right.
go.
Yeah, I
But I
think
didn't
one
see
of
much by county, and so that was kind of my thought. And then at the same time, it allows you to really take your time and spend some time. And so like in Cook County, we're gonna have two stops. One is gonna be at a place, but the second one's the Jordan Beller Museum.
mhm.
This gentleman's 87 years old. He's having health complications. This might be his last year. So, looking at a guy who's got more Model Ts and everything in a museum, just a couple blocks off Route 66, that's the type of stuff that I'm really looking forward to
That's great.
is telling some of those stories but also folding in some of the traveling stories and some of the horror story. Just, hey, they're not all award winners, man. Some of them are going to be some. Well, those are usually the award winners.
Right.
But
Yeah,
uh,
sometimes the best stories are the ones you don't expect to be the best stories.
what's the mission for the Route 66 Fest that you guys have? The AAA Route 66 Road Fest. What's the kind of the goal of it? Is just
Sure. Well,
education or celebration or
it's kind of all of the above. I mean, when AAA came to us initially, they said they wanted to celebrate the route and the history of the route, and then coming up to the centennial. And so, like I dug in and started doing my research because I was going to be creating this historical exhibit. And as I started to work on it, I mean, I've been doing events for 35 years, and the one of the cardinal sins of event planning is to never try to make an event that has the quote something for everyone, because you just can fall in a hole trying to do that. But
that's by the way that's true. That is so
having
true. Yeah.
having said that, this is as close as I've come in the 35 years that I've been doing this. And so the kind of the approach that I took was I wanted to build an exhibit that told the story of the history of the route. I wanted to do it in a way that if you are a deep dive history lover, there's going to be something there for you. If you have a very casual or passing interest, there's going to be something to engage you as well. And then from a demographic perspective, I really wanted to make something. And the kind of the question I asked myself was if I was going to walk through this with my kids, my mom, and my grandmother, what needs to be in here so that they could all find kind of a touch point. And so that's really what that was kind of our intent. And the ultimate goal, honestly, is to get people informed and excited enough about the history of the route that they'll get in their car and go out and see it. And that's really so the end goal really is to kind of give people the foundational interest and kind of drive them out onto the road, pun fully intended, because that's where the real stuff is. And like you were talking about the different people that you're talking to, I mean, obviously there are the iconic things along the route that everybody stops and sees, but in my experience, some of the most interesting and most fun I've had on the route, we're talking to people in a diner or a gas station, or, a tourist from Germany standing outside a souvenir shop or something. So, I mean, I think what's beautiful about the route is that it's so diverse. It happened at a time before chains. So, every restaurant was owned by a family, every motel was owned by a family. They weren't the chains and the kind of cookie cutter thing that there is now. And so there's a personality on the route that you just don't really get anymore. And it's kind of a callback to a time when I think, and one of the reasons that the route is so popular internationally is because it kind of was a freeze frame. The high point of the route was kind of that moment of Americana that people all over the world like to think of as America, and so there's always good and bad with every time, but I do think there's something really admirable and nostalgic about the fact that, you're not going to be going from one McDonald's to the next, or one Exxon to the next. Every gas station, every restaurant, every shop is something completely different, owned by families, sometimes generations of families that have completely different stories. And that's, to me, that's the magic of the root.
And these are real stories too, because Route 66 was part of a paradigm shift. I mentioned earlier about my personal paradigm shift that I did not my I luckily when I was basically shutting down my magazine business, the broadcasting industry came calling, which allowed me to shut down my publishing business. But when the internet came out, that was our paradigm shift in the
Sure.
publishing world. So when the interstate system came, the connectivity, the highway system, that was their bankrupt city.
Yeah,
That was their time when they went through their very difficult times. And so Route 66 experienced, some real trouble, and that's one of the ways you build character is through that.
absolutely.
And I go back to one of the more amazing things that I discovered, because the book I ended up doing was a bathroom reader type. I love bathroom readers.
Sure.
And so it's, it was meant to be, one page of facts basically type of a thing. So you can pick it up, sit down anytime and not have to follow along. But, motels were created because of Route 66, which when you actually really think about it, wow, the engineering involved, the civil engineering, the business orientation, just the vending concepts and parking lots and et cetera. I mean, that whole thing is remarkable. But the part of Route 66 that I find to be the most amazing, I think, is that it's a national park. Is that
Sure.
at the end of the day, it really is a national park, but it's a road. So that right there should really tell people how beautiful it is, because national parks are first and foremost beautiful. That's why we have the national park division. As my understanding was that Teddy Roosevelt saw some land that he wanted to preserve the beauty of it to make sure that industry never encroached upon it. Well,
Right.
that's what this road is protected by, people. So I mean, that's how I look at it. But what's the most amazing aspect of the Route 66 from your point of view and your history and what you've learned about it just over the years?
I think, the thing that intrigues me the most, and the way that our exhibit we call it the journey, and it's a living journey through the history of the route. And um, as I put that together, it's done chronologically. So I've got one full exhibit on the 20s, and then one on the 30s, and then one on the 40s. And so by the nature of how I was constructing it, I was really thinking about it in those terms. And so it was very much an evolution. It's watching not only how the route and the communities around the route and the families and people associated with those communities, how they changed. And that's really, I mean, obviously, just with time, there's an evolution, things change, technology increases, different things happen. But kind of watching the growth of that, I think, was the most interesting thing to me. And honestly, I mean, the route runs right through the heart of America. And so, you know, pretty much anything you can come up with broadly in American history, you can connect to the root in one way or another. Something you said earlier, I really connect with too. You'd mentioned the adversity and how, it's kind of a spinoff of the necessity is the mother of invention, but adversity causes people to adapt and grow and do things that they maybe wouldn't have done otherwise. And there are so many instances of that along the route, whether it's the Dust Bowl forcing people west. I mean, the route, obviously, Al Steinbeck,
Hmm.
66 was the mother road because it was carrying people to hopefully prosperity out west. But another example of that adversity, and this obviously isn't exclusive to Route 66, but certainly took place on the route, is the Green Book era and some of the things that happened with that. Obviously, on the surface, segregation is a terrible thing, and there were lots of horrible things done in the name of that happened along the route. But the byproduct of that was some incredible ingenuity and entrepreneurship, and in the face of adversity, you had African American families creating motels that were safe for Black travelers, restaurants that made it safe for Black travelers, and the Green Book itself. I mean, Victor Green came up with the concept. He was a postal worker in New York City, and realized there was a need to have a guide so that African Americans could travel safely across the country. Because I mean, right here in Oklahoma, we had some notorious sundown towns, where if you're African American, you could not be there when the sun went down or bad things were going to happen. And so the Green Book, in my opinion, even though it was born of adversity and of a bad thing, it's really proof of the ingenuity and ability to adapt and survive. And that's all along the route, whether it's the Green Book, whether it's the Dust Bowl, uh, really there's just stories all along the way, and then it all kind of comes back around after the road is decommissioned in 1985, and Angel Delgadillo, out in Arizona, looks at his town, Seligman, that's been bypassed. His town's about to die, and so he goes to the state and says, this is not okay. Like, what are you going to do about this? And they made enough noise that they listened. They formed the first historic Route 66 association in America. Now every state has one. Some states have more than one. But I mean, that was the beginning of the revival, and that's the movie Cars. So again, it's adversity leading to something great, and that's part of the American story, despite time. But I really feel like the route has a bunch of different ways of kind of encapsulating that story, and that's really inspiring to me. So,
The other part that I really enjoyed with this, and this is one of the reasons why ultimately we felt like it could be, offered to subscribers of the Crude Life and that sort of thing, was because through the course of it all, it was fueled by the internal combustion engine. Is
sure,
that a lot of this was the road created this Americana that we speak of. And yes, the road did follow the steam engine or the coal engine or just the railroad for a while, but that's a different, it's a totally different transportation style. Whereas
absolutely.
a car gives you personal freedom. A train you got to run when the train times, and on the time of the train when the whistle blows. But a car you can
Sure,
just get up and go, and that's what changed the hotels to motels, and that's what
absolutely.
changed the diners. And all of a sudden, that's one could argue that that's why the interstates came, was because the connectivity created such high traffic that they needed the bypass situation to happen in a lot
Sure,
of different towns. But it's a remarkable road in so many different layers. I mean, as I mentioned, there's more stories than Mother Goose, but these stories are true and real. And the angel story from Seligman, I hear that more and more, and every time I hear it, it's like a different chapter
right.
that comes with it. Like, I didn't realize, it didn't even dawn on me that Yeah, that stretch from Gallup, New Mexico, or Albuquerque to Flagstaff, man, you got to really fight for tourists, and you got to fight for traffic. And yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
tough.
the story out there is amazing. It was a privilege for me. I got to do the exhibit that I did in the visitor center in Kingman is actually about Angel, and so I got to go to Seligman and spend some time with Angel and his family. He's 100 years old and going strong, man, and um, he's an incredibly impressive individual because of what he did, but at the same time, he's just a guy, and that's kind of the way he will tell you his own story, which is I'm just a barber that saw a problem. I didn't want to see my town die. And again, that's what's so great about this is the resurgence of the road, the revival, and everything that's happening now all comes back to people just saying, I have pride in my community and I want to see it thrive, and so we're going to fight for it. And what's going on along the route now with all the revival projects and things that are happening, it's really amazing and it's great. It's like obviously I'm biased because I've been living in the world of Route 66 now for 6 years. Um, but I try to drive the small roads when I can. If I have the time, and I try to plan trips now where I do have time to kind of take the old road, get off of the highway, and just see what's there because there are still things out there to be seen and you just miss them when you're going 80. You're not seeing much of anything. So I always encourage people to do it, and there are some stretches where some of these old roads are just as good if not better than the highways because of wear and tear. So definitely always up for an adventure myself.
Of course, Route 66 has invested quite a bit of money into a lot of renovations, whether it be for the road, whether it be for neon signs across Oklahoma. Every time I see another news story, it's about neon signs in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Regulations coming out of Tulsa, I saw for one of them even.
Yeah,
But
that's very popular here. I
yeah,
mean, the thing about the route through Tulsa is it runs right through the middle of town. In some places it kind of rides the outskirts, but
right.
with Tulsa, it runs right down 11th Street, which is where the University of Tulsa is on 11th Street, and it goes right through downtown. And so, as I've been working on this project, it's interesting because, there are obviously big cities on the route, Chicago, St. Louis, and then there's tiny, tiny towns like Seligman, and I've been to those, and it's just interesting to see the different communities and how they embrace the route. I mean, some cities, it's not that big a deal because they have a lot of other things going on. Some places it's the thing. It is what they have. And so I kind of started saying a few years ago, there are towns and cities that Route 66 passes through, and then there are Route 66 towns and cities, but they're up and down the route, and some of them will surprise you. There are places where you think, man, how does this little community have any money to put towards anything? And that's the thing they choose. So it's just a really cool story. There's really nothing else like it. I mean, it is very much a one of a kind sort of story. There's, beautiful roads and highways all over the country, but there's just nothing quite like Route 66.
And it really does represent a time in America when, because America means so many different things to so many different people. And in today's political climate, I've joked about this whenever I do, somebody calls me to do an oil and gas interview or energy or anything along those lines. I say, politics has ruined politics to where you can't even have a kitchen table conversation anymore. And
Right.
so it's when I say the word America, people are triggered by it. And I don't understand that because it's supposed to be this, melting pot of different ideas and different um, religions and races and uh, interests and everything else. But what was driving it was this idea that you can better yourself, that you can always have an opportunity to pull yourself up and better your situation. And that's really what, to me, Route 66 reminds me of, a time when
Hmm.
communities embraced that, where, if somebody was down, the community would help, the rising tide lift all type of a thing. And
Right.
and that's what I think Route 66 is trying to almost capture, is that spirit, and put it along the whole. Obviously, it inspires people in a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, it does seem to have a small town um, vibe to it all the
It
way through,
does.
even in the bigger cities like yours,
Sure.
And so, and I don't know if the giant statues have it. How many giant statues do you guys have? You got the big miner, I know that, or the big
There's
oil guy.
there's a there's a bunch right now. I mean, the Golden Driller is probably the
That's
oldest
it.
one. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been around for a long time. But on 11th Street now, we've got, let's see, one, two, three, four. I think we have five roadside giants now on 11th Street. So we we have become the land of giants down that stretch, and it's all really in a stretch of about 3 miles of road. So yeah, it's but again, that's one of the cool, quirky things about the route. I mean, the world's largest bottle of ketchup is on Route 66. The Cadillac Ranch. I mean, why would you bury cars into the stick it out of the ground? All along the route, you've got those things, the teepees and the dinosaurs and I mean, it's all out there, and it is so unique, and it kind of goes back to that sort of kitschy Americana vibe. And it's fun. I mean, it's fun whether you live it every day and that's who you are and you live inside that. And it's also fun. It's okay to laugh. That's the thing. Nobody gets their feelings hurt. There's a reason that the Uranus Fudge Factory is on Route 66, and people stop there. Some people probably drive by and go, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," but a lot of people stop, and that was the point. So all up and down the route, you've got stuff like that, and that's, again, it's just fun.
Well, it was made for social media before social media,
Absolutely.
but what it was a place for you to go with your kids, for you to stop with your family. It was meant to stop, and at the very least, take a Polaroid, or
Right.
take a picture that takes a month and a half to develop, and you only get 24 choices on the whole trip, you know, instead of 24 choices during breakfast. Sit there and
Right.
take a bunch of pictures and that sort of thing. Uh, vendors, food, that sort of thing. So when I was perusing the website before, I did make a note of the vintage RV area, and that seems really cool to me. And I think a lot of people are going to like that and appreciate that. Can you actually walk inside and take a tour?
A lot of them, yes. It's so funny, the way, the origin of that. When I was starting to put this show together, I thought, I'm actually driving down the road, and I saw like an old Airstream, and I was like, those are so cool. And then I was like, that'd be kind of a fun thing. So I got on Facebook and I started looking for RV people. And I found a group. I reached out on Facebook. They invited me to come to this gathering they were having in Arkansas. So I drove over a couple of hours to Arkansas. And I mean, this is not a world that I have any experience with. So I went into it completely blank, had no concept. And they were the most fun, engaging, diverse group of people. They had trailers that were 80 years old, 100 years old. The different styles and the levels of luxury and all of the stuff blew me away. And I was like, would you guys have any interest in coming and being a part of this show that I did? And they were like, yeah. So the first year, I think I had about eight, and this year we're going to have close to 30. It's grown every
For real?
year.
Wow.
Yeah, and we make a little RV park right in the middle of this giant expo building, and the owners will sit out in front in their lawn chairs, and they'll tell you as much as you want to listen to about their trailer. And it's fascinating. I mean, we've had one a couple of years now that's 2 stories tall. Like, I didn't know that even existed. And so Um, they're Spartan trailers that were made here in Oklahoma that were all part of, basically they were post World War II. They had to do something with all of these fuselages that they had art
Hmm.
like sort of, and so they turned them into these Spartan trailers. They look kind of like an Airstream, but on the front of them, the way that it's built, they have two windows on the front, and it looks kind of like a Spartan warrior mask or something. And so it's incredibly cool. And like I said, not something that I ever knew anything about, or without this project, I would ever even have known that I wanted to know about. But it's one of the most popular features at the show. People can't resist it because they're just funky looking. And again, it's such a community, just like along the route. This is a community of people. They travel, they live all over the country, and they meet up in these places. And our event, I mean, we're honored that our event has become one of those places where they come together and they just have a blast. And you're invited to come into the party, and it's great. It's a lot of fun.
Do they grill and stuff too? Do they make it that homey or no? I
They
mean, I know it's an
they
indoors, so it's
if I
probably yeah.
if the fire marshal would allow it, they would 100% do it. But unfortunately, since it's indoors, we can't do that. But
Yeah, boy, I could just see them trying to do that though, man. Get one of those green eggs out there. And when you said the fuselage, I immediately was able to visualize what it would look like. And yeah,
right,
it was kind of like about 90% of an Airstream,
yeah, yeah, it's
and
super cool.
very cool. Yeah, in fact, that's where I'm broadcasting from right now is my camper.
Really,
Yeah, a 25 footer pull behind. It's a
very
slide
cool.
out. I call it my college apartment on wheels
That's great.
because you can see that it looks like one of those college apartments that you get
Right.
back in the day. You close the you close the door and the whole place wakes up because it just makes so much noise. It's all hollow, but it's got a refrigerator and a stove and everything, and
That's
they're
great.
nice. Yeah, it's great, but I'm not bringing it. I talked to Reese Martin was one of the
Yeah.
first interviews, and he brought up a great point that it gets a little sidewindy at times,
Oh yeah.
and
Um,
I don't want to even mess with that. And then the other thing is, campers are supposed to be more stationary than mobile.
right.
And if you're hitting a different county every day, so I got so I'm going to do it in a town and country. Actually, I traveled my dog, and so I have a town and country where I put the seats down below, and so it turns into
Okay.
kind of like a traveling, small little living room type of a thing. Because then I don't like to drive the interstates anymore. I like to take the back roads.
Yeah.
And if I see a nice looking river, I like to pull over for a while and let
Sure.
my dog run around, and I'll go take a little walk or a hike because as I
Yeah.
mentioned, I traveled a lot in my youth,
Right.
and I'm here to now try to enjoy life a little bit and that sort of thing. Um,
That's great. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be taking a trailer. The stretch from Kingman to Needles through Oatman it's called the Sidewinder, and it's one of the craziest. I did that drive in a rental car, not a big car, and still there's no rails. I mean, you're just looking
oh,
down the side,
oh,
and
I
it
hate that.
it is just wide enough for two cars. And so when you got traffic coming both ways, you definitely white knuckle through there. It's amazing, and I'm glad I did it once, but I don't know. I don't know if I would do it again, but I
Oh,
would
there's
definitely not want to be doing it with a trailer. So
places in Wyoming and Utah like that where it's just a 300-foot drop off. That's all. And
yeah,
there's not that they would stop you from falling over the edge, but at least you got to
right.
put up one of those single wires, to
Yep, yep. There's nothing.
give me the
So
illusion.
Reese
Uh,
gave you good advice. He's a wise man when it comes to the route. He knows that road.
how about food? Are you guys doing much with food there? That would be hard because there's so many diners around and but at the same
Yeah,
time, if people are going to be there for the day.
sure. Inside the expo building, they have their concessions, and so
Okay.
that's the food. But they've got great stuff. I mean, they've got barbecue and burgers and hot dogs and like all the stuff. And then some of the vendors will sell, prepackaged type things as well. So there's lots of treats throughout there too. But yeah, the food there is great.
Okay. Okay. And then the other thing was the vendors, I guess. Are there other vendors besides the RV people? Like, are there, like a trade show type of a thing?
Absolutely.
There
Yeah.
is. Okay.
We've got, it'll be somewhere probably between, 50 and 100 vendors. They come from all over the country. There are a lot of Route 66 specific vendors that do, handmade artwork
Mm-hmm.
or do photography. And then there's like local people that make, like mead or candy or, so there's all kinds of stuff. It's not unlike you would see at like a state fair kind of thing. There's a lot there to look at. So,
Are people going to be selling merchandise and all that different stuff?
oh
So,
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
okay, yeah, okay, and the classic car show that's indoors,
yes,
and I could see that. Yes, during the air conditioning, that is definitely going to be that. And you mentioned the presentation stage. Michael Wallace, is it? Is that how you pronounce it from Cars?
yes, yes.
And I did hear the name. What's his name? Jim Hinckley,
Oh yeah,
who I'm going to be co-hosting with in Kingman, Arizona,
yep.
from the Dream Makers Auto Route
That's
66 place.
that's great.
Yeah, yeah,
Jim is a great guy.
and I think the day before is Seligman, because that's the
Okay,
county. That's the county that's connect. And I'm working with a county official there, Brooks Compton, and I believe that we're going to have Angel involved and that sort of thing
great.
too. And yeah, because like I mentioned, a lot. I'm even a couple. I've reached out to a few senior nursing homes. Are you kidding me? Could you imagine the stories that would come out
Oh
of a
sure.
nursing home if it's on
That's
Route 66 or in a town of Route 66? And I'm not sure I have enough time. I might just have to hit record and leave for the day and come back and
right.
put a cardboard cutout of me in there and just let him talk.
But yeah, that'd be a great source of some really amazing stories.
You mentioned Jim was going to be there and Michael Wallace. And I think this is a great idea because the music I was going to mention. I'm actually wearing an Energy Expo shirt. This was in it was an energy conference in Wyoming, and I used to MC and introduce the governor and that sort of thing. And they tried the band one year, and it just didn't work. The vibe wasn't there, and everything. And so the next year, what did work was a single acoustic over in its own little area where people, if they
Yeah,
wanted to grab the appetizer and a drink and just go over there and unwind, but it didn't go beyond a certain point.
right.
And it wasn't a band, it was one person. And so this would be similar to that, to where now you're talking, it's more of an intimate setting, which this is what this works for. Outdoor is a little different. Outdoors
Yeah,
when
we
you
did
want
that. We
that
actually,
energy.
that's what we did last year. We had like solo artists and duos. We had one trio, but what we found, I mean, your audience will tell you what they want,
Yeah.
and what would happen. We had those intermingled on the presentation stage in between our presentations. And what would happen is people would come and watch the presentation, the music would start, and they'd get up and go get something to eat and come back for the next presentation. So it just wasn't a great experience for the artists. And so they're playing to a lot of empty seats. So this year we're just going to stick to what works, and that's we have a very I guess specialized audience. They are there to hear about the route, and so that's what they want. So that's what we're going to give them. So
Well, I saw that in Kansas that Michael Wallace, he packed him in. They had a
oh
line
yeah.
that Krispy Kreme hasn't seen in years.
Michael is amazing. Not only is he a tremendous author, but he's a character. I mean, he is. There's never a dull moment. He's got great stories, and he's just really engaging and entertaining and fun to listen to on stage. We've been very fortunate because he lives here in Tulsa. We've had him at all of them, and it's been great. Joe Sonderman from St. Louis has also been here for all of them, and we've had Jim here now for the last few. So we've been very fortunate. I call them the Mount Rushmore of Route 66. It's the guys that have been out telling that story for a long, long time, and just honored to have them be a part of it.
One of the things that I find remarkable too, from my perspective, just to give a little bit of more validation to the spirit of this road. I've never seen Cars, and I've I didn't grow up with Route 66, and that song
Right.
was not on Casey Kasem's top 40 when I was a kid.
Right.
So for me, I really wasn't influenced in a way that others were in a pop culture way. Like when I
Right.
talk to a lot of the millennials and younger, it's all Cars.
Oh yeah.
It's the Route 66 was saved by Cars the movie for the younger generation, and for the
What's
older generation it was classic Cars and the show and the song, and so Gen Xers are like, well, what do we got? So
Right. What's interesting too is, I was born and raised in Tulsa, and so I've always been aware of the route because, like I said, it runs right through town,
right.
and we've always had commemorative signage, and there's always been a presence in town. So I was aware of it, but it was never like necessarily a big area of interest for me. And I've got kids that are of the right age that when they were small, Cars came out. I've seen that movie 1,000 times probably, and listened to it even more times than I've seen it. But I didn't really make that connection until I started working on this project. And as I was going through, I was like, that sounds familiar. That's funny how that. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I have to watch this movie again. And I did, and completely different experience. Now that you have done the research, you should watch it because you will get. So Michael Wallace plays the sheriff, like he does the voice of the sheriff in there. The character of Sally is actually the owner of the Rock Cafe in Stroud down the road. And so all of a sudden you start putting the pieces together, and it's like, holy, I never realized. And so, little did I know that even at that point that I was going to end up getting to spend the time I got to spend with Angels. So it is a revelation to watch it after you realize what it's actually about. Good story either way, but definitely takes on a different meaning once you've done the research. So
That's the stage I'm in right now, where I'm using it currently still as a positive. And I'm changing the point of view of it as a positive, but eventually that can change into a negative. So I'm trying to figure out if I should watch it before I go on my trip, if I should watch it after I'm done with it, or
right,
along the route. Because when I stop cars on the route in Kansas, for example, I, I didn't. Somebody just told me the other day that one of the people that I'm going to interview is one of the voices in Cars. And I have no idea, and I don't want to be
right,
disrespectful, but
right,
at the same time, they don't necessarily want an unprofessional experience either. And so
right.
it's a weird dynamic I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I'll eventually watch it, but yeah, I was kind of putting that together like, man, these kids keep talking about Cars and I haven't seen it yet. It was kind of like when The Office came out. Everyone loved it and shoved it down my throat, so I didn't watch it for 10 years. And now
Right,
it's one of my favorite shows. I absolutely love it,
right.
but you know how it is when something's hyped so much, it's like, okay, I'm in a
Sure.
place where it can only be less than. But well, I didn't realize he lives in town too, so that's
Yep.
nice that you have access to that, and he really packs them in, and the kids love him, and he very accessible to the different individuals. Do you have any other sponsors that are part of this event?
I mean, we have some local communities that sponsor, and some different companies that sponsor, different areas and things. But really, AAA's does the heavy lifting on this deal. So
Okay, okay, and is it the 23rd, 27th?
it's the 27th and 28th.
27th and 28th, and in Tulsa,
Yep.
classic cars. And what should people expect? Is there an admission to get in?
There is. It's a very inexpensive. Our standard adult ticket is $10. If you're a senior, it is only $7. If you're in the military or a veteran, it's $7. And if you're a AAA member, it's only 5. And then kids 12 and under are free all the time. So, if you really take advantage of everything that's in there, it's a full day. I mean, you're in there for the whole day in the air conditioning, and it's a pretty inexpensive way to keep the family entertained. So, that's what we made it for, and it is that. So
One thing too, if you've got vendors, you'll probably walk out with some swag. And
there's definitely some things to be gained. Yes.
okay, there was swag. I mean, I know if you're down in oil country, usually the swag is pretty good at those oil conferences. I don't know about a Route 66 one, but oh my. As you go more south up north, it's mostly like oh, Hershey Kisses, and maybe you get a pen. You go down
Right.
a little more south, it ends up getting a little bit different. But and then is there anything else that you want to make sure people know or that we missed out on or anything like that when it comes to the event?
I mean, the only thing we really haven't touched on, we do have what we call our activity area, and that is a really kid-friendly, family-friendly area where we have it's all hands-on type activities. So we have guided painting classes where we have somebody that you get your canvas and they'll show you how to paint the blue whale or the golden driller or something along those lines. We have pedal car races where you can race, your family, your friends. They're kind of like giant big wheels, sort of, and we've got a course set up. Um, we have Pinewood Derby races, we have Hot Wheels races, we have virtual reality, and then we have an 18-hole Route 66 themed miniature golf course. So, the way I looked at that when I was making it, like I said, I have three kids. When they were little and we would try to go to a museum, after about 30 minutes, it became very unpleasant. And so I personally call it the bribery area where, you can say, okay, we're going to go through the first exhibit and then we'll go do miniature golf, and then you get through a couple more and you can use the Hot Wheels races. And so, it's basically kid leverage, but it's all, hands-on stuff. It's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I mean, that kind of rounds it all out. Like I said, we've kind of got something for everybody. So,
I'm not I guess I'm not familiar with the location of this said place. So if you've got classic cars, you've got 30 RVs set up.
mhm.
Now you've got a soapbox derby and a miniature golf course, and I don't know if I heard bouncy castles or not, but um, how big is this venue?
So it's 435,000 square
I mean,
feet.
is it a dome? Is it like a
It's a big exposition center, and
okay?
basically back in the day when we were the oil capital of the U.S., it was built for that, for these big oil expos. And at one point, and I do not know if this is still the case, but at one point, it was the largest unobstructed space, indoor space in North America. So there are columns, but unlike most giant structures like that, the columns are on the outside. And so we have a ton of unobstructed space in the middle of that thing to work with. And so we don't use every square foot of it, but we use a good portion of it. And
You still got leftover space.
a little bit, not too much, but we use it for storage and, for me to park so I don't have to walk out
Sure,
when I leave. So, the benefits of being the producer, I guess, right?
I guess. And if it's built for oil and gas, then there's definitely a big parking lot because they like to
Oh,
display
yeah,
things
there's
out there.
plenty. It's on the fairgrounds here in Tulsa. And so,
Okay.
there's obviously what you would expect with fairgrounds. There's lots of
Yeah.
giant barns and horse activities and all that kind of stuff that go on year round as well.
Now, how far is the fairgrounds from Route 66?
It's on 15th Street and 11th Street is Route 66. So it's half a mile.
Okay, so it's yeah, literally a stone's throw then. I mean,
Yeah, but
not that far.
the back side of it is sits on 15th, and it's I mean on 11th, so it's right there. I mean it spans it basically. So
Well, and that's the other part too that's so important about this Route 66 is there's so many businesses and events that are happening, right off Route 66. And
absolutely,
the Tulsa Admiral drive-in.
yep,
That's not on Route 66. It's off it a little bit, and they're entering their 75th year, but
yep,
that's connected with Route 66, through and through. This auto museum and right outside of Chicago. It's about 2 blocks off Route 66. The Wheels Museum in Albuquerque, for example, is another one. And I was even seeing where like the hot springs are even trying to capitalize on. They're like, hey, here's 9 hot springs within an hour drive of Route 66, and
Right.
so everybody's trying to capitalize off it. But for a lot of the businesses, and events and everything, it brings in people like a state park would, or like some kind of attraction would. And it's just so many different areas, from the giant statues to the different classic cars to, and in classic cars nowadays, 1996, is it? Is that right?
I can't wrap my mind around that, so I'm gonna stick with my own personal cutoff is like 70s. So I can't think of anything after that as being classic at this
Isn't that
point.
crazy? Like when I was talking to the classic cruise people in Tulsa, the Capitol Cruise,
Yeah,
um, when they were listing, it's all it's got to be is, a car before, after, or before 1996 is what I thought they said. I
yeah,
I I spit out my water. I mean,
yeah.
Nirvana came out before then. I mean, it was like, well, all I could think
Yeah.
of is, well, I'm going to go get myself a 1995 Suzuki Samurai and drive down,
Right.
drive.
Yeah, I can't give into that yet. So I refuse to acknowledge that, I am now vintage. So, I'm just gonna choose to ignore it.
I'm with you on that one. It's a little bit of my German stubbornness coming in there, to where I gotta definitely think of classic cars are 70s or earlier for
Yep.
sure. But
Yeah,
hey,
anything prior to Smokey and the Bandit, that's where I cut everything off. So yeah, anything after that, no. Like so.
yeah, the kit car would be, all those 80s,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
those experimental 80s cars that were very boxy looking. Actually, that's kind of what the Tesla looks like now. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to ask you about as we kind of wrap up here, as I'm looking at, we're into overtime. Kingman, Arizona, you were doing some things, or did you work on the EV museum at all?
At the time when I was there last, they were still kind of in the fundraising planning stage, but I still talked to Tasha there, who's working on that project, and I hope so. I hope I am working on it when it does come, start to actually go into, full production and design. But really cool project, and that's something that we have had some things in the past where we've featured what we called the future of mobility, and we had some hydrogen cars and some electric cars and that sort of thing. So, it is the future. And I mean, at one year, I guess it was 3 years ago, we had an autonomous trolley that ran a course out in the parking lot, which was, again, it makes me sound like 100-year-old man, but like it is very weird to sit in a moving trolley that is not being operated by a person. It ran its course, and
Yeah.
like it was wild. So I don't know if I will ever get to the point where I can let the car drive, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's our lifetime, that's for sure.
It is.
And Route 66, they've got to adapt, and everything along the way. And up in my neck of the woods on the other side of the state, they've got Highway 85, and they right away named that the Theodore Roosevelt Expressway, because it's the only way Western North Dakota got money before the oil boom came.
Right.
You got to turn it into a human being, so you can
Right.
give it some money. But where it's at now, they're building the Theodore Roosevelt Library out there, Medora's out there, and Highway 85 goes directly down to the Black Hills.
Okay.
And I think within the next 5 years, there'll be autonomous buses that just do those tours back and forth.
Right.
And that's where I think Route 66 is going to go too, where there'll probably be a full length one, but you'll have Oklahoma City to Tulsa autonomous Route
Sure.
66 days and all those different things. And it'll be good, but I'm with you, man. I have a hard time. I'm in that generation of people right now looking at the pre 1999 vehicles, so that somebody in a control room somewhere can't control it with the flick of a switch.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is the future, I guess. Progress, right?
But the other real reason is you can actually fix them yourself,
True.
and that's one of the realistic reasons people are going back to some of those older cars, because you go in nowadays, it's $1,000, man. Like, and
Yeah.
it's back to the George Costanza Johnson rod they fixed. Like, okay,
Right.
I guess so, whatever. New technology. That computer said what it is, so I got to believe them. But anyway, let's reset here and do a commercial for you and get people motivated to come out and AAA Route 66 Road Fest. What should people know, and how can they find out more?
Well, you can go to our website, which is route66roadfest.com. That'll give you all the details. And it is Saturday, June 27th and Sunday, June 28th at the SageNet Center at Expo Square here in Tulsa. And it's our 5th year. We've got it down now. So this is the year to come check it out.